Welcome back to the Plamo Talk. And today I want to go ahead and go into how I got into Gundam and how I got into Gunpla. I know I've kind of hinted at this a little bit, little snippets here and there in some videos, but I want to go ahead and take a deep dive into this. I want to go and give some context to how I got into this, why I'm into this, and where I'm going with this. And so the how is back in the early 2000s, late 1990s, Toonami came around and they introduced a series of animes from of course Japan, and Big Ten was there. That I think that was like the first American anime, or one of the, not the first, but it was an American anime. And of course that led me into watching things like Dragon Ball, Akira, Vampire Hunter D, through my own like investigation at Blockbuster and things of that nature. So I was able to appreciate and start watching anime based off of what I saw on Toonami, on the Cartoon Network. So that was an early appreciation, early adoption of anime. But then they released a new video or a new movie, a new show called Gundam Wing. And I had never watched a mecha anime before, and for me, it was brand new. It was something different, something like I said, had never seen before. So I wanted to check it out, and immediately I was taken aback. Being this 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, whichever age I was back then, I was immediately taken aback by this. It was different. It was something new. The human element, of course, was there, but excuse me, I had to get a drink. Of course, the human element was there, but then it's infused with mecha. It's infused with mecha, these big giant machines that tower over some buildings, 60, 70 feet tall in some cases, or larger, and your first thought at this, or my first thought at this is, holy crap, these are awesome. These are amazing. And again, like I said, I'd never seen anything like it. Growing up as a kid, you watch, I grew up watching Power Rangers and Knights of Tirnanog and the VR Troopers, some early Voltron, stuff that, came on Saturday morning cartoons and daily television, but never anything like this. So yeah, Power Rangers, you have the Megazord and all that stuff. But when it came to mecha anime, I'd never seen anything like it, and so I was immediately thrusted into this fandom. But as things occur, as things happen, you get older, and I graduated high school. I was focused more on what I was going to do as a career, where I was going to go with my life. And most of the stuff kind of took a back seat. My fandoms took a back seat. My appreciation for a lot of the things I enjoyed in high school took a back seat. The gaming I did took a back seat. And, that was, over some time, even during then, I tried to watch what I could and keep up to date with what I could. But back in the 90s, early 2000s, the internet was still very much in its infancy on the consumer side of things. And I wasn't really looking for Gundam related material. I wasn't looking for anime. I wasn't looking for new movies. I was looking at car parts, and I was looking at new computer parts. I was looking at some new games and places to go hang out with the people that I knew. Through MapQuest, and so I wasn't really doing any kind of research. I was also downloading a crap ton of music and movies off of LimeWire. Oh, I know I admitted that. My bad. Don't come after me. But it wasn't until later on, in my late 20s, where I picked back up on some of my fandoms. Though raising kids, again, time is everything when you're raising kids, and so I spent a lot of my time focusing on them and not so much on myself. So again, my fandoms took a back seat, but not near as much as it did in my early 20s. Um, so I was able to, game a little bit more, find some fandoms, get back into some of these things. I found Gundam Wing again, started watching Gundam Wing again, but I had only seen um, a little bit of material here and there for the original Mobile Suit Gundam, and my first glance at that, even back in the early to late 2000s, was, man, like this is such an outdated cartoon. This is such an outdated anime, visual effects wise. I just don't want to watch it. I don't want to be disappointed, and so I never watched it. But I always had a fandom for Gundam, and it was mainly centered around Gundam Wing. Because with a serious lack of research and a serious lack of understanding, I didn't know much else beyond that. So, here I am in my later 30s, my mid to late 30s, and my oldest child is in her early teens, and my youngest two are out of their toddler stage, and I'm able to focus on me a little bit more than I had in the past. And so I started to get back into some of those things that I left so long ago as a teenager in my early 20s, and started to reignite my passion for a lot of that stuff. And so I started watching anime again, getting into stepping my foot into that with like Dragon Ball Z, even though I'd watched it from start to finish when it first came out in the United States. I watched Dragon Ball Z again, started there. Then I watched Dragon Ball Super. And then I started to get into other stuff. Got a subscription to Crunchyroll. And then I started getting into seeing all the Gundam that I missed over the years. And I missed a lot. And this is all spawning off of a comment, one I didn't take negatively. At first glance, it could be perceived that way if you don't really read it. But I took this off of a comment that was just made on one of my latest videos for the G-Quux series that's coming out. And the observation was made, have you previewed the film? Have you previewed anything about it? They stated it was pretty clear that you hadn't, and it's true. I had not, and I did that on purpose. And I'll get into a moment, because I want to add a little bit more context here. Is that I missed a lot of Gundam. I missed a lot of stories. I missed a lot of series. I wasn't up to date with anything. I didn't know where to start. So I just kind of held off on that. But I still watched some more anime. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, when I really started to just say, you know what, I've got time now. I've got time to sit here and do this. So I started back over. I watched Gundam Wing again, because that was my starting point into the franchise. And then I started getting to other series, Gundam 00, Seed, and all the variations of that. And then I was like, well, I'm going to watch something else. And so I started watching some other shows and some other animes, and started getting into more games. And so, here I am in my late 30s. Work is a priority, kids are a priority. I'm still, I still got kids at home, so I'm raising them, and I'm going to work, and I'm trying to find time for all this stuff. So, if it's not like where in my teens where I had plenty of time to do all the things I wanted to do. I've got to be a little bit more deliberate in how I spend my time. And so I'm choosing to do these things, these podcasts, these videos, these build reviews, things of that nature, because I do, I do want to, make something of this, really I do. I want this to become something important. I want this to become something special to me, and it really is to me. This is special, and I want this to become something great. And so, um, going back to that comment, there is a purpose behind why I say the things I say, don't say some of the things that I don't say in these build reviews and these kit reviews, and even the latest video about the G-Quark series, is that, I'm not going to speak on something, or deliberately speak on something. Sometimes there's a Freudian slip or slip of the tongue that happens, but I'm going to do my best to not say anything about Gundam series that I know nothing about. What I'm trying to do ultimately is build these kits and review them based on the kit alone and nothing about the show. Do I intend to watch Build Fighters? Sure, I intend to watch Build Fighters. Do I have time? Well, again, I'm busy. So I'm trying to make the time to, between creating these videos, these podcasts, and going to work and coming home and raising kids, I'm trying to find the time to do that. Do I want to watch Gundam 00 again? Sure, I want to watch Gundam 00 again. I like that series. Do I want to see what comes out? I saw a little snippet about something with Gundam Seed, that they're going to be releasing another movie about Gundam Seed. So yeah, of course I want to watch that. I just watched the first part of Gundam Hathaway. I watched that the other day, and that was awesome. I don't know how everybody else viewed it, but I really don't. I really don't look at what other people say about shows or movies. I mean, sometimes I read them, but I don't really pay attention anymore to that, because I want to form my own opinion on this stuff. And, whether it aligns with somebody or not, I really don't care. I want to be able to form my own opinion on it. And if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. At the end of the day, I don't care what other people think about my opinions on the subject. And I'm sure they don't care about my opinion on the subject. They like it or they don't. And so I've been deliberately, going back into this, I've been deliberately avoiding a lot of news about the shows and what's coming out, the trailers, the information about the movies, and any kind of hints at spoilers, any hints at information about the show or movies, because I want to go into it blind. As a person, I had commented, that I went into that blind, and I did very much so. And I'm doing that on purpose, because I'm focusing on the kits, but I'm also focused on the series. I want to watch the series, but I want to watch it with a fresh set of eyes. I don't want to go into the series with a preconceived notion or preconceived mindset that it's going to be bad, it's going to be terrible, it's going to be great, it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread. I don't want to do any of that. And so I want to go into this stuff with a clear set of eyes, with no information whatsoever on it. Look at the kits, and look at I went to the website, just to kind of get a little bit of a snippet of an idea of what this might look like, and I based the video around that and my opinions and thoughts on that. But I didn't go any further than that. If you agree with that, then fine. If you don't, then that's your prerogative. But I did that on purpose, because I want to be able to speculate. I want to hypothesize and kind of guess at a direction that they're going, or I want to see if I'm wrong. And most likely I'm going to be wrong, and I'm okay with that. I really am, because it's YouTube. it's life. It's nothing. Nothing too detrimental here. It's not a. There's nothing bad about not wanting to understand what's going on. And I do blame this very much on Disney Marvel. I was a huge follower and had a huge fandom, which is what took a better part of my 10 years was Marvel. I went into such great lengths to find out everything I could about every new Marvel show, every new Marvel movie, understand, see leaks, behind the scenes footage, photos of the sets, and blah, 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 blah. I tried to really get heavily invested in that, try to understand, what's coming next, what's the next movie about, who's in it, what do their costumes look like. And, there's a total burnout from that. Because leading up to Endgame, a couple movies prior to Avengers Endgame, I noticed myself that I'm just like, okay, I'm just getting tired of doing this. Like, it's getting to be too much. And then after Endgame, I just, I wasn't invested as I was prior, and that could just because of the fact that Endgame, to me was Endgame. I knew that they were going to make more movies after that, but I spent the better part of 10 years heavily invested in all the shows, the movies, the news, the articles, the behind the scenes stuff. I was hanging on to every bit of this stuff. And the lesson I learned from that was I wasted a significant amount of time just focusing on trying to understand the next best thing for Marvel and what's coming out. And good Lord, that was such a burnout. And so, yeah, when it comes to anything new, like TV shows or animes, movies, whatever it may be, if, I do catch wind of it and I do see something, then I see something. But I'm doing my best to kind of not. Yeah, I do want to be apprised on. I do want to know that something's coming out and like when it's coming out. That way I can catch it on Crunchyroll or Amazon Prime. And I think G-Quox is going to be on Prime. But I want to be able to be surprised, genuinely surprised. And as somebody who came later on into Gundam, even from an earlier perspective, just with Gundam Wing, but coming back to it later on in life and watching it with what would be a fresh set of new eyes, because who I was back when I was 16, 17, and 18, I am not that person as I am today at 40. I'm, a completely different person with a different mind because, my training in IT, I'm very technical and very analytical. And, there are clearly a lot more people out there that are far more analytical than I am. But, what this allows me to do is to think critically about the medium that I'm watching, the show that I'm watching, and look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And I could say, okay, well, and Mobile Suit Gundam from 1979, when I watched that, I noticed this and that, and I pick up little pieces here and there, and I'm a lot more attentive to that. And so whenever I see this new show, or when it does come out, or this new movie when it comes out, I can look at that and go, okay, well, they did that here in the original series, and they're not doing that here, and they're not doing that there, and that's okay. That's totally fine. But I want to go into this blind. I really do. And so I know that's like kind of a huge deviation, a departure away from, the how I got into this. The how of how I got into Gunpla and Gundam in general. But I kind of want to. The type of person that wants to give context to why I make the decisions I make and why I do the things that I do, because I think it's important to understand the context of which people make these decisions and that I make these decisions. Because somebody could come and make a comment like that, and again, and I want to iterate this, that I'm not mad. Like, I'm not mad. I'm not upset. I'm not hurt by the comment. I don't think the comment was intended to be mean, and that's fine. And, I don't think it was intended to be hurtful at all. It was just an observation that they made, and I thought it warranted a conversation, because I know that for some uber and elite fans of Gundam, what I'm doing here could be taken as some kind of sacrilege to some degree, and I'm doing things a little differently, and I'm not taking the time to just invest a good chunk of my life and my time into researching every finite detail about these shows and movies that are coming out. One, because I've got a full-time job outside of this. I work 40 to 60 hours a week in some cases, and finding the time to do that outside of spending time with my kids and building these videos, it's just difficult to sit down and spare the extra cycles for that kind of thing. Though I'd like to, it's difficult to do that sometimes. So, I do the best I can. But ultimately, kind of trail back into this conversation, to kind of full circle this if I can, getting back into Gundam for me was a moment in my life that allowed me to kind of get back in touch with the kid that I was 22 years ago, and allowed me to appreciate these shows in a different way than because when I was younger watching these shows, I watched them with a glazed look. I was just infatuated with what I was seeing on screen. I wasn't too heavily invested in the story. And so I was more interested in the animation and the characters design and the mecha design versus the actual story. So I didn't catch a lot of the story and the undertones in the story back then. But today, that's different. Now that I'm actually taking the time to watch these shows to get a better understanding of what they're about and to invest in these series and movies, it's allowing me to gain some better perspective, better ideas, better thoughts, invest some critical thinking into these shows and to really appreciate them for what they are to me now versus what they were to me then. It's like I equated to watching Dragon Ball Z. Of course, Dragon Ball Z, you're going to get invested. It's a fighting show. You got characters beating the crap out of each other just about every other episode, right? So teenagers are going to be very invested in that. What they're not going to be invested in is anti-war sentiment or geopolitical nonsense and geopolitical turmoil and undertones about politics and just everything that Gundam brings to the table. Most teenagers are going to be focused on that, and I know I wasn't. But now that I'm sitting there watching this and watching these shows, I have a better understanding of what the messages they're trying to portray, and what they're trying to say. And I think now that I'm in my 40s or just turned 40 a couple months ago, again, I can come back to this with a fresh set of eyes and a different mind than I had when I was in my mid to late teens. So I can't say that I've been a hardcore Gundam fan my entire life, but I can say that I am now. But I was a Gundam fan, a fan of Gundam earlier as a kid, and carried that fandom through the years. Just was never really cultivated it until I got here later on in life, in my late 30s and now my 40s. So yeah, I understand where this commenter is coming from. I get it, because there are some people that want to know everything about what comes out, want to know the finite details about what they're about to watch. And to them, I applaud them. I applaud you for doing that. I think it's incredible that you're able to dedicate that amount of time to something and really appreciate it beyond, how I'm able to appreciate it. You see it through a different set of eyes, and you see this fandom differently than I do. I might be part of a couple of Facebook groups here and there, and I have this channel, but at the end of the day, I don't really talk to anybody about this stuff. I just, I go to work, I come home, I make these videos. I pretty much speak in an echo chamber, for the lack of a better phrase or lack of a better idea. I basically speak in an echo chamber. I rely on the comments in these videos to, either correct me when I'm wrong or, comment and, say what they have to say about the video or the content or what they think about the kit that I built and if they're going to buy it or not. This is deviating a little bit from the original idea behind this channel, which was to just do kit builds and kit reviews. But now that I'm sinking my teeth into this a little bit more, I'm going to start investing some more time in some early thoughts on kits before the release, some early thoughts on kits from series. Am I going to do what I did again? Probably. I might preface the next video about a new series and the kits based off the series. I might preface a video with, I have not watched anything related to this movie. I've not watched anything related to the show. I am coming into this blind. I want to speculate. I want to be surprised. Maybe I should start off on some of those videos that way. This would allow for a quick introduction as to what I'm doing and why I'm saying the things that I'm saying. I think that's a good change, and I think that user that commented highlighted that, and I appreciate that they did. And again, I'm not mad or upset about the comment. It didn't bother me, didn't ruffle any feathers. But if you were to just look at the comment at a higher level and not really take the time to read the comment, it could be taken the wrong way. And so I think it's important. Without getting too preachy, I'm trying not to go there. I think it's important to really understand the way that the question or the statement's phrased. Read it a couple of times and then understand that sometimes when somebody comments on something, it's not necessarily meant to be combative or argumentative in nature, but they're passionate about their fandom. They're very passionate about their fandom. And so they're going to have some things to say. And for that, I respect that. And so I do respect and appreciate the person that made the comment stating that I didn't watch the film and I didn't do any research on the show or review any of the trailers. And they're correct. I did not. And I did that on purpose, as I've outlined in prior comments and statements in this podcast episode. So I know this is a very long-winded conversation. I know this is a very long-winded podcast. And I'm not expecting anybody to really listen to these. This is more or less a way for me to get things off my chest, to kind of talk to as odd as it may sound, to kind of hear myself say things out loud about my thoughts, opinions, and things of that nature. And if you're so inclined to agree and you listen to these, great. I appreciate it. But the podcasts right now in their current form, they're more or less meant to be cathartic in a weird kind of way. So with that all being said, I'm going to go to bed. It is 1:30 in the morning. I just got done editing a video, filming a new video, and creating this podcast. I think it's time for me to put my Diet Coke aside, turn this microphone off, and get some sleep. I think that is the important thing for me to do to start my Saturday off right and get prepared for my live build video that I'm going to be doing later this evening around 8:30 p.m. Central. So for those of you who do listen to this podcast, the live build is moved to tomorrow or today, technically, at 8:30 p.m. So I look forward to seeing y'all there. I should have a surprise and part of that video. Anyway, I'm going on. That's that traditional Southern goodbye. I'm going on. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm out of here. I'm going to go get some sleep, and I'll see y'all later.